Hey everybody, I'm Jess Lupini, and this is The Words Don't Fit the Picture, the show where we untangle the strange and fascinating relationship between gender, voice, and identity. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Ivan Coyote, an incredible writer, performer, and storyteller. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I would suggest going and doing that first, so you're not jumping into the conversation halfway through. When we last left off, we were talking about music. Here's part 2 of our conversation. It's such a common story that queer people often discover themselves in music. Like, why do you think that is? Is it just the lyrics? Is there more to it? Is it the voices?
I don't know. I've thought about that a lot because, like, there's so many videos out there of the, like, super fey, grandson or somebody's nephew. And that kid's probably, catching shit all over the place for being, not conforming to his assigned gender box until he really busts it out at Aunt Sophia's wedding or whatever. And then there's this space made for it because it's creative and I think artists, we've always been allowed. I mean, I talk about this in Playlist. Why was nobody talking about Boy George's hair extensions or his eyeshadow? Like the boys I was going to school with, there was a uniform, there was a certain way of being, and like there was no space outside of that, except for unless you were George Michaels, unless you were David Bowie, unless you were Katie Lang. They were calling a dyke back then, big time, and she was not allowed the same freedom as, say, George Michaels was, or and then you think about Liberace, like you think about Freddie Mercury. There's something about music that expands that a little bit. That might be somewhat part of it. I don't know. I secretly think that I'm going to get in trouble. I won't say it. I secretly think that queer people and trans people have special superpowers. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I want to know what they are.
We could talk about that when we're not being recorded.
Okay, sounds good.
I don't want them to know.
We can't let them find out. They're going to tell the church.
No.
We'll break that down when we can compare record collections at some point and see what we've got.
There's probably reasons why hardcore evangelical Christians don't like their kids listening to rock and roll or any kind of music except for but even then it's like good luck. Mm-hmm. He's gonna sing like an angel. He's gonna sing like an angel to your Christian contemporary. Like there's just nothing you can do about it. He has superpowers. So
it is cool. Like music also, I feel like, has the superpower where it affords us this safety blanket around being able to express ourselves in ways that are just like not okay in society otherwise. And then, you go up on a stage and you can kind of do anything, you can kind of wear anything, you can be anyone. It's really cool.
Frankenfurter, the original Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think about that a lot. Actually, that should be a playlist. There should be a playlist song in there too. I should pull something from Rocky Horror Picture Show, because there we all were in grade 10 at the midnight show in Whitehorse, Yukon, in 1985, peak homophobia, man. Mm-hmm. Well, not peak. I mean, who wants to win that contest? But, like in 1985 in Whitehorse, right? Everybody's like, you could go as Frankenfurter for Halloween. You could be a dude in my school and go as Frankenfurter, and everybody would just tell you, if it was Halloween, everybody would just tell you like, wow, like way to walk in high heels, dude. Like, and there we are at the theater, like celebrating what essentially is a very queer coded movie in so many ways, but I don't know. It was permitted somehow. I don't know. There was space for us. There was more space for us.
I mean, was there space because they were literally from space? Like there was this idea of like, oh, they don't have to conform to
Because they're aliens?
what we're doing because they're literally aliens.
Back to possibly a higher life form.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We can't let the church find out. I do. It's funny you bring up Rocky Horror as well because I have so few breadcrumbs of being aware of trans women in my life in any way. And when I do try and connect the dots, which are very, very far apart in my childhood, the dots kind of go Frankenfurter and then Eddie Izzard before she was even talking about it in that way.
I love her.
But
I love her.
Who I was just like, gosh, so cool. What a cool thing to be able to do. And then Laverne Cox in Orange is the New Black. And it was like, those were my three big dots that I was able to connect. I know there were other small ones along the way, but Frankenfurter is such a classic, perfect example of that.
Also a clarinet, I have to say. I mean, in terms of role models, you should have had more, but those are three pretty great ones, you know?
Totally. I do wish there was more, but I'm so grateful now looking at the media landscape. Like there's so many more role models for people now. It's just wild what's happened in 20 years in media.
Yeah.
Did you have characters who were role models or people that you were like, wow, like that's the person I identify with, that were explicitly or implied to be non-binary?
No, I didn't really. I mean, there wasn't much Katie Lang musically.
Yeah.
But she always, I think, is identified kind of straight ahead lesbian. I never got a real non-binary hit from her. Oh geez. Like I talk about in Playlist, it was, you know, I my Pippi Longstocking, because back then it was just like fighting the girl gender box was so, it felt so rigid, right? In terms of like, you know, what a proper little lady should do. Like all you had to do is just, I mean, in the 70s, wear pants, right? And then it was like, oh, I played hockey. Well, that was a big no, right? Like looking back, I'm like, come on. My family acted surprised when I came out of the closet. And then anyone was shocked that I was also that, like, when I came out as trans, I was like, you know, but I mean, because there was so little trans visibility back then. And I think in a way, like being a trans man felt, and there was not enough representation for anyone. And it's not a contest I would want to lose or win, really. I'm just talking about like who I felt like I could identify with. There was Joe on Facts of Life, which might be a little bit, I'm dating myself and might be a little bit before your time, but you could check.
Yeah, I've never watched that.
Yeah. Joe on Facts of Life was definitely like butch, but in terms of non-binary or like trans masculine or masculine of center, we were like your mother wears army boots. Like we were, there was any depictions were always negative, and we were just a laughing point, really. You know, it was just like all about failed femininity and how sort of tragic and pathetic that was. And, you know, I guess the similar story to what all trans people are told about ourselves by non-trans media sources. You know, we're just the crying game, you know. Although her character in that film was so beautiful, and it could have been a love story, you know. But I don't know if did you watch that movie?
No.
Okay, maybe don't.
Oh God. Okay.
Content. I don't like the term trigger warning, but content summary, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, the typical. You know, we're allowed to be a character as long as we're not an empowered one, as long as we're not a happy one or a truly loved for who we are one. You know, we have to be tragic. We have to be, you know, contemplating suicide. We have to be saved by a cisgendered person. Just in the fact of being seen, that just makes them all of a sudden they're the hero, right? So did I have any real role models? For me growing up, they were mostly cisgender women who challenged the very oppressive gender binary back then. Like my hockey coach, Linda Gould, but she was actually originally my ringette coach because girls weren't allowed to play hockey. And then I went and played in the boys league. And then I eventually got kicked out of the boys league for being a insurance hazard. Long story. And then I went and played women's hockey, and she taught me how to do a slap shot. And so they were mostly cisgendered women who just, but like in terms of seeing what Leah Lakshmi Puransa calls a possibility model, I'd have to be the big zero back then growing up. And unless I bent the edges, unless I squeezed them into a different shape and kind of folded myself into them. I think it was why when I read Stone Butch Blues, even though it was set in the 50s, it was very much an urban story from a big American city. I was like, that book will still be epic for me because Leslie Feinberg, even experimented with not they them pronouns, but here, like HIR, and was a, but even then, like they're a stone butch, like they didn't want to be touched. And there was this assumption that to be a butch meant that you were stone, that you were physically, it was a one-sided, that I struggle with that element of it. So I would even say the person that I most resonated with, there was a big part of who I am that we didn't share that vibe, if that makes sense.
When you talk about bending the edges, like that does make me think that that's one of the big advantages that music has over TV and movies, is that those edges are naturally way softer, and you can fill in the blanks and you can fill in the gaps. You hear a name and a little thing about this person in the lyrics, you can go, I know what they do in between verses. You know what I mean?
Like when you think about actors, somebody can look a certain way, they can speak a certain way, but they're still largely being directed by probably a cisgender person, sometimes a queer person. But they're often reading lines or performing based on a script that, whereas with a song, I think there's somehow like there's less room for it to be interpreted by someone else and I'm talking about mainstream media here, which is why I'm so excited by, do you know this band Under the Rug?
Under the Rug now.
Oh my God. I gift her to you.
Okay, I'm ready right now.
You got to check her out. She's an exceptional musician with an incredible voice that I think she's using her trans superpowers vocally, like to every advantage. She's a gorgeous singer. She's a gorgeous soul, and she is, her band they're great. I love seeing this explosion of trans musicians because it's not, and trans movies and like we're coming into our own, but there's still so far to go, I think, for mainstream people. Like, the first movie that ever spoke really to my existence in the world was Boys Don't Cry. And first of all, it's called Boys Don't Cry, which boys absolutely cry and should cry more. And also, Brandon Tina dies in the end, like a super violent death. So it's not like an uplifting film. It did change my life when it came out because people I remember I was working on it, ironically, on a movie set. And I remember like actors or people, other crew members and stuff, a lot of moving around to different, like you're often working with a different crew or a different, whatever. And I remember people trying to tell me that they were cool with me, Ivan, on set. Yeah. Back when I had like, more biceps too, because I was lifting things or whatever. Anyways, by saying like, I watched Boys Don't Cry. And I'd go, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I really liked it. And like that was their way of saying, but still the story that they're saying is me as a tragic figure, me as a murdered figure.
Right.
Me, so yeah, representation. Well, we could and have go on about this.
Yes. Well, okay. So let me
Okay.
drag us off into another angle and another question.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you've talked a little bit about how things have changed so much over the last 20, 30, 40 years. I know you've been like performing for, I think, around 20 years, maybe more than that now. And obviously, like, queer people of all kinds have been fighting for their rights back in the 90s, earlier than that, ever since then. Some of those fights feel like they're no longer as dire as they were 10, 20 years ago, but some of them feel more scary than ever and more important than ever to pay attention to. And so I'm wondering, as somebody who's been touring and storytelling and talking to people for their job, do you feel like we're stuck as a society in this like loop of these fights? Do you feel like there's progress being made? Are we in a cycle?
I sincerely hope we're in a cycle. Like, for instance, I started doing school shows, an anti-bullying school show as an out trans person I didn't really like. I've never been in my work like, I'm trans, therefore I'm trans, and here's my trans story. I've always tried that's just where I'm situated, and I'm interested in all kinds of people, and I love all kinds of stories, and I write a lot about my family, and I write a lot about this place, and I use humor in my work, and it's not being trans is not the first thing about me. Like, there's many, many other things that are just as important. Not that trans is down the line, but there's many other aspects of who I am that are just as important to me and situate me and my voice in it all in just equally profound ways. So I've been doing school shows from that place since I started in 2000, I want to say. I don't do school shows anymore. I've performed on 5 continents to over 750,000 middle and high school students, and I don't do it anymore because it's literally not safe anymore for me to go into a high school by myself in this current political climate. That's how I feel. I might be wrong. I still think there's lots of good work I'm not saying that another artist couldn't go do it. I'm saying, for me, right before the pandemic, it was getting more and more sketchy. For me, and then the pandemic happened, and I realized how much stress I was packing around and how much PTSD I was packing around from 3 years of continuing to do that work while the rising tide of hatred was being focused on us. So sometimes I think, I don't want to make a blanket statement because they're coming after queers just as hardcore, but maybe not just as hardcore. Like, I think it's open genocide on us at this point, to be honest with you, not to be heavy. The more I listen to the elders, the more I decolonize my own brain, the more I learn about residential school history in Canada, the more the more Indigenous authors I read, the more I see what's happening right now in the world, specifically the US, the UK, J.K. Rowling, responsible for like platforming a lot of it. Like, not solely responsible. There's all kinds of people ready to pick that torch up and run with it for her. And increasingly in Canada and other parts of the world for sure, it's hard not to call it like organized genocide anymore. And that's not to take away from, they're not dropping bombs on us like in Gaza. But if you look at the people who are, there's a lot of crossover there because it's about dehumanizing us. It's about taking away our right to change our names and to access medical care and to remove our history and our stories from school, remove our ability to go to school. or to exist in public places, right? Like, it's pretty serious. It's hard to keep up with it all.
There's so much. It comes so hard and fast now. I've had to like I used to follow politics so closely, and American politics too, and I've really had to disconnect the last like month or so, because it's just been, honestly, the Sarah McBride stuff. There's no way this is gonna make it into the thing, but the Sarah McBride stuff that's been happening, where she got told she couldn't use the women's washrooms and change rooms and stuff in Congress in the States, like that really messed me up.
Well, it's so anti-democracy. Like, they're not even trying to hide it at all. It's terrifying.
We're talking about a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah, let's pick it back up a little bit.
Well, let me ask something kind of connected to that, I guess, that maybe might have a bit more of a positive note to it. We'll find out. I do really feel like my bubble right now is full of people talking about trans issues in the political space. And there's especially so much focus on misinformation and fact checking and the spin of everything. Mm-hmm. And it feels really confrontational, like so confrontational, both between, like, obviously trans people are not a monolith, queer people are not a monolith, but between queer people and the people who are trying to oppress or do not like what queer people are doing. Like, there's conflict there. And then there's also so much conflict within queer spaces and within trans spaces. And it can feel really impossible sometimes that these groups are ever going to understand each other. But I know you've spoken a bunch in the past about how personal stories can be such powerful tools to bridge divides and bring people together. I'm wondering if you have any moments you can think of where a story did something that, like, an argument never could.
Oh, hundreds of times in my life. I see evidence of it often in the work that I do. And I think as I look out at this world on so many levels, environmental, climate change, war in Gaza, war in general, war amongst ourselves. And amongst ourselves, I mean trans people, mm-hmm. and the broader queer community. I think what I can do is be gentle with myself and help myself seek help in dealing with my own trauma, so that I come into queer space and trans space healthy, with with good coping skills, with more self-regulation, because we're under so much pressure right now. Like, we really mm-hmm. are under attack. Like, that's not hyperbole at all. And now even the broader mainstream, because it's so pervasive and brutal, and, like, they've said we want to destroy transgenderism. They always say that, which cracks me up, because I'm like, well, it's not really a word. So, but the gender ideologists, or whatever they're calling us these days, like, we are really under attack. So it's easy to turn on one another. So I mm-hmm. really think, in my limited world, my limited ability to impact on the world is what I'm choosing to do, because I've got, my father that I'm taking care of, like, I was talking about. My sister is disabled. My mom is 70, going to be 76. And, like, I've got familial responsibilities. I've got a job, so I can not do school shows anymore, so I can stay off the road a little bit as an act of self-care, a lot of things. So anyway, I've got a job, and then I've got my work. And so how do I do my work? Because I think this is the time for artists. It's our time to step up. If you look at the most famous, best orators and political minds, they all say the same thing. Maya Angelou says the same thing. James Baldwin, Leslie Feinberg, like, I could go on and on and on. Every artist says, that I listen to and that I look upon as my leaders in that way, my creative leaders, they say, like, this is not a time to It is not a time to descend into, to let despair take over. It is the time where artists need to step up. We have to step up, but we also have to step up, and we also have to work on healing our communities. So we need to be thinking about, reconciliation, not just truth and reconciliation in Canada in terms like of settlers coming to terms with and making repairs to, the Canadian history of oppression and genocide against Indigenous people, that kind of reconciliation, but reconciliation among ourselves. How do we build repair? How do we learn to deal with conflict? How do we, love each other's, even if we're imperfect? How do we allow people to get better? How do we allow ourselves to get better? How do we address the real concerns of lateral violence so that we can make stronger communities, so that we have a hope of fighting, all of everything that's happening to us? And I keep coming back to, the best tool I know is story. The best tools I know are art and music and dance. It's always been our space. It's always been a place where trans and non-binary people have been able to access our secret superpowers. We all know the power of art and music and poetry and dance to affect change. I think we might have just had a little power flicker.
Yeah, I saw a flicker.
Yeah. It's always can happen in the Yukon.
That was really sweet. I feel so strongly that there's so much power in art, and that it can reach people in such, like, in a way that kind of goes around a lot of the defense mechanisms that we've built up. And I think it's so clear to me that art circumvents preconceived notions, things that we've learned often incorrectly from society. And I think storytelling is such a cool, like, pure way of doing that, because it's person to person. There's no like, oh, they chose a bad camera angle, or there's I don't like this song or this instrument or how this thing's being played. And so I appreciate what you're doing as a storyteller for all of us, Ivan.
I think this is a really interesting conversation that we could probably have for another, 10 years, hopefully.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing conversation, and I love that we're having, as trans people, we're having more nuanced conversations, and we're having I feel heartened by this conversation, even though we touched on some pretty tough topics and some pretty harsh realities that we're facing, and it's been a real pleasure. I don't know. I thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it took a year for us to get the schedules together, but
no, this is great. And next time, I mean, we clearly could talk about this stuff like ad nauseum. I'm sure a conversation about our Desert Island albums would be maybe a little more, light.
Okay, tell me a song I have to listen to.
Oh,
trans artists.
Do you know Muna?
No.
It's a trio, queer, trans. They're absolutely wonderful. They're like one of my favorite bands. The lead singer, Katie Gavin, I actually just saw her solo show, because she just put out a solo record, which is very influenced by Joni Mitchell and Sean Colvin. So worth checking out for sure. It's called What a Relief.
Okay.
Beautiful solo record by an incredible vocalist and lyricist. But recommending a single song is so hard.
Okay, I know.
But I would say the song I'll recommend, which I'm just gonna say the one off that Katie Gavin record, because it is a really unique song, is, I'll say, Inconsolable. The song Inconsolable.
Okay.
It's very influenced by I would say, like, Irish folk music.
Okay.
A lyric that jumped out at me as we were talking this previous conversation, not a trans artist, but a band that I've noticed, strangely enough, attracts a very large trans fan base, is a British rock group called Everything Everything, and they're one of my favorite bands.
Okay.
And they have a song from their second most recent album called Raw Data Feel, and the song's called Born Under a Meteor. And I think about it all the time, because it describes better than any other lyric or phrase I've heard what coming out felt like for me 3 or 4 years ago. I was like, I feel like I'm born into this beautiful world. I'm looking up, there's this incredible thing in the sky, but that thing might just kill us. It's so scary.
Okay,
but
I'll check it out.
So beautiful to be alive. So,
I've really loved this conversation. I hope it's not our last. I'll just say that.
Me too.
Okay, great.
I want to ask you one last question really quickly, Ivan,
Yeah.
which is, do you have any advice for younger trans people, people who are just coming out now, who might be listening to or watching this, especially if they want to tell stories and make art like yours?
I have many things. It's not an easy question. Right off the top of my head, I would say you connect with, we need intergenerational knowledge exchange.
Yes.
But for that to truly happen, queer and trans youth need to approach their elders not like a library. We have to approach community as part service and part services. So you can't just go, because I get this, and it can be really overwhelming, and you want to help out the youth. You want to speak to, you want to empower trans and non-binary, especially artists and creators. But I'm not a library book. You can't just take me out, take what you want, learn from me, and then put me back on the shelf. It's an unsustainable model, right? I can't just be taken from, right? And so we have to all learn that queer and trans community, for it to function, it has to be reciprocal. You have to come to the table and go, be conscious about what you need and what you're looking for, and also be introspective. And I know that's hard for youth to do sometimes, because you need this, you need it, and you're 17, so you need it right away, and you don't know that things sometimes take a while, or you don't understand what 30 years of experience looks like because you haven't had 30 years of breathing yet. So how could you possibly? But maybe I just ask humbly to approach community like it's reciprocal. And there's lots that you can bring to the table. You don't have to come just with your hands out to receive. There's many things that you can do. And I think we would see instantly stronger communities. Because when I was working on Care of, and I was going through 11, 12, 15 years of correspondence, there was two major themes. And have you read that, Care of, the book? There we go. Okay, so you've read it. There's both queer youth and trans youth, especially, I was making special space for in that book. That's why it's literally in the trans flag colors. I don't know if you picked up on that, but anyway.
Yes, of course.
We had to work really hard to find that blue. That's a hardcover too, eh? So you got that beautiful baby blue.
Well, and your photo with the like in the, if I may, this, I love this shot.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
it's so cool with the different colored shadows in the background.
Yeah, very intentional. So that book is full of trans and non-binary youth reaching out desperately for mentors, and then there's also a lot of elders, queer and trans elders and lesbian elders, saying, I would love to be of more use to queer youth, but I'm scared of them. I'm scared I'm going to use the wrong pronoun. I'm scared I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get canceled, and they're going to do it they're going to slander me on the Twitter, or I'm invisible to them. I don't fit I'm not wearing the uniform anymore because I'm 80 years old, and I have to wear Crocs or whatever. God forbid that I have to wear Crocs one day.
I'm struggling with that one too, to be honest.
I'm just struggling along with my sore feet and my my constantly sore feet in my Bluntstones. Like, I'm determined.
Yeah.
I have accepted finally Birkenstocks for summer, but that was hard because that was such a lesbian thing, and I wasn't a lesbian in the 80s. I was a dyke, or I was a a butch or I was, as a trans person, a non-binary trans person, I was like, I will not wear the Birkenstocks, but now I will. Now I will wear the Birkenstocks. Anyway,
unparalleled support. So
we need to come together. We need intergenerational knowledge exchange, but we need to do that reciprocally and respectfully, and we need to let our walls down a little bit, which is really hard to do when they're coming for us. But I don't even know how much I can stress it. I'll start to cry, honestly.
Yeah, I came close a couple times in this conversation. There's something else that I want to add from, it's something that you said in care of that I want to add to what you just said, which I think is so important. There's a story you talk about where you were listening to a trans woman speak who was, I think, in her 70s, and how she was talking about her experience and what she suggested for other people in a way that didn't necessarily reflect how things were today. It was very much about her experience at the time, which was so different, obviously, growing up in a different time. Yeah. And so I think what I want to add, as you talk about the importance of reaching out across generations, we're so lucky to have queer elders. Thinking about, we all know why there are so few queer elders a lot of the time. Now I'm going to cry. But the importance of understanding that people who grew up, who came up in a different time, went through very different experiences from you, and they're going to use different language. They're going to talk about things in different ways. They're going to self-identify with different words that might mean something different to you now, and that being curious about that and interested in that can, I think, also bridge divides and help us understand not just where we are now and where we're going, but where we came from. Because I do think that there's a blueprint in that for where we need to go, which is to a place where we can all use the bathroom without worrying. Yeah. That, like I said, we need to do. There's a lot of internal work that we need to do to bring our best selves to this very crucial table for all of us. Well, I feel like we should call it there.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Ivan. This has been such a difficult and wonderful and great conversation. I feel so alive after talking to you.
Me too. I feel inspired, actually, because I feel like a lot of what I just said, if I may say, you're a younger trans woman. I feel like a lot of what you already are embodying. And so that's really heartening to see. So, yeah. Well,
I didn't have a lot of role models as a kid, and the truth is I have a lot more now, and I feel lucky to kind of count you as one of them in a lot of ways. So thanks so much, Ivan.
Well, if we had more young trans folks like you doing this great work, that would, anything I could do, it makes me feel good to imagine passing down my knowledge in a place where it will be respected and heard and reciprocated. It's awesome. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, thanks so much. Everybody watching this, listening to this, please look up Ivan. They've got lots of great stuff online. Read their books. They have a bunch of fantastic books. Care of is a great one. I don't know what your go-to book of yours that you recommend to people is. Gender Failure, Tomboy Survival Guide, and go check out their show playlist if you can. I hope you get to keep touring it. I hope you can make it out to Vancouver.
Oh yeah, it's on the list.
Thanks so much, Ivan.
Thanks, Jess.
It's been wonderful. See you soon.